I think we're live, and so let me make you host, William. Okay, so you're now host, William, and let's see. So yeah, so William, as you see people, you can admit them as appropriate.
Okay.
Um, let's see, this almost got this set up. Okay, so Esther, you're the first one to join, so welcome. Thank you for joining my office hours. The topic here is the topic of closing roads. Um, this uh, this is something that some other cities are doing because people have to social distance, and the idea behind it, I think, is that uh, sometimes the sidewalks aren't wide enough for people to pass each other, but be 6 feet apart. And so this is one of the things that came up. Also, some people have been talking about like excessive speeding on some of the roads and stuff like that. But the point of this today is actually to hear people's perspective on this idea. So, Esther, I'd love to hear your suggestions or ideas on this.
Sure. First, I wanted to know why you want to close the streets, and will it not just make more traffic on other streets,
Mhm.
like be counterproductive?
Yeah.
Because
So I'm actually, just to be clear, I'm not actually advocating this.
okay,
Yeah. So I uh, actually haven't formed any opinion on this. I'm just what I mentioned was more mentioned more is some other cities have started to do this, and I think the reasons why they've thought about doing this um, is to um, allow people to do more social distancing, and I think the other reason why is because they wanted to um, hello? Wait, can you hear that? Okay. Um, so yeah, we have the Zoom bombers, right? So
yes,
we
it was about.
yeah. Actually, the city council meetings and all that stuff. So William will have to actually, William, maybe what you should do is ask. I don't know if you could ask people if they're where in Palo Alto they live, because if they can't give a legitimate address, they probably are a Zoom bomber.
That's
You
right.
can't talk to people in the waiting room.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, um, so yeah. So as I mentioned, there are some cities that um, that have done this to allow better social distancing and also speeding. But like you said, this also has an issue of pushing traffic to other streets, right? Because the car's got to go somewhere, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of um, practical challenges as well. So yeah, but for myself, I haven't actually made up my mind. In fact, this hasn't even been a topic that we've discussed. It's something where I would like to start getting. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining. Um, Something where I wanted to start getting feedback from people on hearing, the pros and cons of this topic, and if um, if if it seems to make sense, maybe we'll look at it more. If it doesn't make sense, we just don't do. But it's something that's come up, and so that's why we're holding office hours on it.
Yeah, I have a question. How would it? I mean, you're in the car, right?
Hmm.
So if you close the street, how does it help distancing it?
Well, I think it depends on which street you close, right? So if you close the street in front of your house, then you think, well, how do I get the car out? So I think there's a lot of practical questions that come up. I'm not sure actually. I haven't studied to that level of detail as to how that happens. But it's a good question. So I don't I think it really is certain streets, and there's no proposal on the table right now to close certain streets in Palo Alto. It just right now there's this concept, right, that I think one of the council members brought up, but I don't know whether it makes sense, and also whether what does the people that live here, what do they think, right? Because that's why I wanted to hear people's thoughts on this.
It didn't make logical sense to me because you're in the car.
Hmm.
You close the street. What is it then better for pedestrians to get out without we can walk on the streets? Is that the reason? Why would you close it otherwise?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sandra, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining. Esther was just sharing some of her perspective about the street closures. So uh, I think the idea, like I said, Esther, is really to provide more opportunity for people to socially distance, and then also, uh, and I'm not sure if this is necessarily going to help, but is to reduce speeding. Of course, if you eliminate the cars, then of course there's no speeding at all because there's no cars. So I think those are the two thoughts. But Sandra, feel free. I'd love to hear your perspective on this topic as well.
Oh, sure. Thank you for having this town hall. I'm actually phone banking for my niece who's running for Portland City Council.
Oh, awesome.
I just
Okay.
left my phone bank to come in here. I'm going to
Okay.
go back.
Okay.
So we have a bunch of families on the street, and we have a fairly small street. We're down by Whole Foods. And we're starting to congregate out, just for social distancing. And I said, how about if we close the street? With that, how we could clear the parked cars and put some cones out on the edges, maybe with some flowers or something, coming out of the top, make it kind of fun, but enough so that the fire engines or police could come through. Sure. And then put out maybe even some furniture or whatever on the sidewalk, and basically be able to socialize and use the street as a playground for the kids and for us to be able to at least have a safe space to go and chat and be outside. So I checked with everybody on the block. Everybody loves the idea. They're all in. So I talked to Chantal Friday, and she said she had been talking to Philip about it, and that I should talk to Philip about it. So that's sort of, and then Gail said, oh, we're having this meeting. So here I am.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing your perspective. Gail, welcome to the call. I really appreciate you joining in.
Oh, sure. Sorry,
yeah.
I'm a little late.
Oh, no problem, no problem. So Esther and Sandra both shared their perspective on this topic. I'd love to hear your perspective.
Okay. Basically, I saw an article about Oakland engaging in this, especially during the pandemic period. And this goes back to sort of planning 101. About 2 or 3 decades ago, a lot of cities were involved in auto-restricted zones, ARZs. And this is really a variation of that beyond just sort of commercial corridors. And it seems to me that during the pandemic, we have an opportunity to actually make it possible for some street closures or restrictions to automobile use. Now, there is standard practice, as you know, for street closure, which is managed by the police department when you have block parties. So I guess the real issue is looking at the Oakland model as an example and figuring out how there can be a specific modified process that's similar to what we already have in place, or perhaps a little bit different, because you'd need the buy-off of transportation and the police department for sure because of emergency access. But most street closures, if people must get in and out, there is a way to do that. But I know there are other people interested in this. I haven't taken a survey of my street because I wanted to see where you were coming from and what other ideas are out there.
Yeah, I haven't formed for myself. I haven't actually formed an opinion which way, one way or the other. I've just been hearing about it. I know that there's a lot of people who are excited about it, a lot of people who are concerned about it. So I wanted to think about what are the pros and cons of this. And right now, as far as I know, there's no like firm planned closure of a street. People have an idea, but there's not a definitive plan at this point. So have you actually looked at the Oakland implementation fairly closely?
I haven't. I read an article about it. I have to look at it. I mean, they have something like over 70 miles are partially or fully restricted. Okay. And Oakland, of course, is a much bigger city, but I understand. I mean, if Oakland can do it, we're on a much smaller city, and I think it's quite feasible. The issue is really working with the police as well. Yeah. And the question is, can you do it designated periods, periodically, you know, depending on what the input is of the other members of the street.
Sure. Sandra, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think there are two different issues. I think one is a more formal, like we're going to close down a section or one street for several long blocks,
Yeah.
and we're going to make a pedestrian zone. That's one way of doing it.
Right.
The other is just like, I don't really want to go through a lot of bureaucratic BS, quite frankly, in order just to hang out with my neighbors on my street for maybe 2 hours in the afternoon or for whatever, you know.
Like
And so,
for a block party.
yeah, so it's kind of like, and I don't want to have to go get a permit, and I just want to be able to put some cones out and not, and make sure that everything would be temporary, so a fire truck or emergency vehicle could certainly get through. And just have it as a common, I mean, we have so much area in the city that is dedicated to cars.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
here we are, people who need to be outside, and why are we dedicating all this real estate to the car, which is often not even being used that much, especially like on my street. I mean, I'm close to Whole Foods, but there's not a huge amount of traffic even now. So, and where you live, Gail, I mean, there's virtually no traffic there. So why are we not sort of commandeering the streets for us as opposed to the occasional car that's going through, making sure that we understand the safety implications of it and not having to go through filing a report and getting a permit and paying a fee and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, I did it for the parklet that I did down on University Avenue.
Right.
It was a huge pain in the ass.
I just want to give Elizabeth, thank you for joining. I just want to give Elizabeth a chance for you to share your perspective. Esther, Sandra, and Gail have already shared their perspective, but I'd love to hear your perspective on this topic as well. Can you hear us? I don't know if she can hear.
Yeah, you know, I think there are many different issues here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I think the video is frozen,
Okay.
but I think we can hear you.
Okay, good. There's one which is just simplifying. If you want to have access on your street to have sort of shared space for community, and it's not a major thoroughfare, that seems pretty straightforward to limit the bureaucracy on that. And if you want to put out cones, or that seems to me so simple. But I've sat on the Safe Routes to School committee, and you know, the issue with speeding is separate from this. And that's my bigger concern, is the behavior of the cars around town. I'm out running, I'm out walking my dog a ton right now, and I never have an issue with not being able to socially distance when I'm with my daughter running or with the dog. But when I cross Embarcadero, there are still cars going 70 miles an hour or 55 miles an hour in a 25 mile an hour zone. And that to me is a greater concern, especially because without cars on the road, there is an abundance of speed. And I'm worried if we limit from sitting on Safe to School, we have.
Elizabeth, your phone, your connection's not the greatest. So
if we limit them to doing street closures, when I would prefer that they were out ticketing for speeding. Okay. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can.
Your connection is not great. Your video's all frozen and your audio is a little bit choppy. Hello?
Well, here. Yeah, hold on. I will, my short thing, I will put it in a chat.
Okay. Esther, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I want first to see what the goal of it is. I mean, we heard great, you know, socializing with neighbors. That's a great idea. You know, being on the street, able to walk on the street. So I don't really understand what's the goal of street closures. Is it that cars don't speed? Is it that we get closer to our neighbors? Is it that we have more access to the streets as pedestrians? I don't get what's the goal of this?
Yeah, it seems like that is, I mean, Esther, that's absolutely right. I mean, that was why I sort of said there are two buckets. One is the thoroughfare, long boulevard, we're going to close this whole area, versus I just want to close down my street and have more social, interactions with my neighbors. And so there are two really different kinds of beasts there, I think.
What I want to know with the city, what does the city want to do? Why does the city want to do it?
Well, the city hasn't made up any, like, so on the
Okay.
council, we haven't made any decision. We haven't actually even talked about this topic. So, and the purpose of this office hours is because I wanted to hear people's feedback. I've seen other cities trying to do this. I've seen some people who've written kind of wanting to do this. I've had a lot of people who come in complaining. Actually, just out of curiosity, I know it's a small group here, but how many of you guys actually think there's speeding going on right now? Do you guys see like a lot of speeding or not really? No?
Well,
There's much less cars on the street right now. I never had this little traffic since I live in Palo Alto.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I don't see a lot of traffic.
No, not at all.
Well, not traffic, but speeding. Speeding.
Speeding,
Well, either. I mean, I'm not seeing either.
Oh, okay.
well,
Okay.
I would say on Arastradero, there are fewer cars, which is
Mm.
great,
Mm.
but many cars that are using Arastradero are going way above the speed limit. But I think we have to separate again.
Right,
It's-
right.
I agree. I've seen it. That's an enforcement issue. And that is something going to the police chief and others saying, look, there may be fewer cars, but some of them going very fast and it's dangerous. And I think that's one set of discussion points. The other is the issue of the potential closure of streets. To speak to address Sandra's issue, I think honestly, one approach, if people are interested in this, is there a very simple or a simpler way to achieve this? In fairness to the police department and fire, they do need to know which streets are even partially blocked
Mm.
for a period of time for health and safety reasons.
Yeah.
Fine, that's the standard street closure approach. There shouldn't be a fee. The issue is, can you simplify this? And I think my impression is, and based on, we've had block parties on our street for 28 years.
Mhm.
When that happens, it is a great experience. It's a social experience. It's very safe. It's not noisy. So this is an opportunity to capture these opportunities during the pandemic when there's less traffic, in order to socialize and connect with neighbors. It's community building, basically. And my own experience, 28 years with the block party, it's a great experience and it reinforces neighborliness. And I think that's one of the reasons, and it's relaxing and you get exercise and all of these things. So
Sure.
I concur with Sandra's points. I really do feel that it's very valuable. And the issue is, can it be simplified?
Right.
And are people really interested in pursuing this?
Sorry,
I'd say several people are, but I can't speak for all my neighbors or
Sure.
other streets.
Sure. Sandra, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I think, for me, I would never talk about closing Embarcadero or Middlefield or any of, Loma
I think
Verde. I mean, that's just like, that's just not going to work
nuts.
anyway.
Yeah.
That's not for me, it's not on the table. So for me, I would like to be able to have guidelines. I don't want to have to go through a bunch of red tape.
Yeah, just make it simple.
Can the city put out some guidelines saying, we understand that some people are wanting to do this. Please follow the following guidelines. And I don't think it's an enforcement issue, because I think pretty much people are going to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm going to have to leave it free so fire and police can go through. And here are the guidelines that we'd like you to follow. And I don't think we need a nanny state here where the police are coming around checking. I mean, the police actually do come around here because I'm near the fire station. And they've seen us congregating on a 6 foot with 6 foot distancing, and they're fine, but and we spill out into the street anyway, because to get the 6 foot. So I don't think that's an enforcement issue. I think it's if the city could issue guidelines quickly. I mean, if you're waiting 2 or 3 weeks, it's like, that's not going to help.
Keep it simple.
Keep it really simple. Here are the guidelines. If you have buy-in on your street and everybody wants to do this, maybe you want to limit the hours to afternoon hours or morning hours, or from 3 to whatever.
Sure.
Suggest that to neighbors that they could those are the kinds of things that you might want to put in a guidelines document. I don't see it as a very complicated document, honestly. And and quickly and put it out there and just see what happens. I mean, it's sort of a tactical urbanist. We have an opportunity to try some stuff now. And if we squander the opportunity to try some stuff, well, that's really would be too bad.
So Elizabeth, thank you for joining us again. Did you want to, before your thing was really broken up, we couldn't hear you very well. Can you hear us okay now?
She's on mute.
Oh, she's on mute. Okay. You have to unmute yourself, I think. I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
I
we
think
can't hear you.
when I called in on the phone, it said I was on hold.
Oh, we hear you now. Oh, maybe William had to unmute you. Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, I think we can hear you now.
Okay. Probably someone else in my house was on Zoom somewhere else, but
I don't know.
I think, Sandra, I totally agree. I think these little community building experiences are terrific, and that should be simple and easy.
Mhm.
I do think there's an issue with speeding, and we have limited resources. I don't want our cops patrolling for street closures. I don't want them to waste any time on that. I want them to be out doing the traffic stuff because there's so few of them doing that. And if we could change some behaviors during this time, that would be great, because speeding is a huge issue in Palo Alto. And it's going to get worse as soon as we open up the business again and people are driving back into town. So right now it's only locals driving and speeding. As soon as businesses reopen, we resume that, twice the size of Palo Alto again. And it's people who don't live here, who don't know where the schools are, who take the back streets to get out of traffic and are zipping by schools and putting all our kids on bikes at risk.
Yeah, but that's a general problem. That's not a pandemic problem.
Oh yeah, it's an everyday problem.
Yeah.
But that's why I was like, closing streets, fine, if it's for fun and for socialization. We don't need to do it. I don't think we need to do it for social distancing. And I don't want to waste cops' time. I'd rather have them out there really trying to reduce that, make that a better environment.
Yeah, I have some.
Does it have anything to do with Corona? No, but better behavior in our community would be, I'd rather see our cops do that.
Yeah. So the block party issue, I'm just a little concerned. On my neighborhood, I'm in South Palo Alto, by the way, where Kapali Community Center is. And I see so many neighbors I've never seen in my life before on the street right now. And we even have problems not to run into each other, because they're all out with the kids, and it's wonderful. I love it. And I'm out with my dog, and you see and you talk. But even if you would, make it even more like that, we would have a problem distancing. That's my worry a little bit, And I say
your worry is that this might promote too much social engagement, and you think people will have trouble.
I mean, we adults, we should know what 6 feet means, right? But you always have some bad seeds. You always have some people who don't do it, and so on.
In general, I've seen people be really good about staying 6 feet apart, right? Even I've seen people walk down a sidewalk and people walk into the street to.
Then why did the city close all the nature preserves? Why did the city close all the parks? Now we are even congested in our little neighborhoods. I don't even know how upset I am about this, but
So that's another topic, which is I think the reason why the city did that was because they were concerned about people would get too close together. But I felt a little bit different. I asked about this at maybe not the last council meeting, the council meeting before, because I do wonder if you can still go to the nature, you can still go to foothills. You have to Uber there, or you have to bike there or walk there or something, which is tough for a lot of people.
Like in our age, uphill to foothill.
And I could barely do it at my age, so
right. I mean, it's not doable.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I think to me it seemed like it should be possible to have someone stationed there that can kind of manage to make sure people stay separated. But it was a staff level decision. It didn't come to council. But I do understand the need for exercise, right?
It's not just exercise. There's research out that nature heals people and heightens their immune system. I don't want to even get into that, but it's essential for a human being to be in nature and be with nature. And right now we are locked up in our little neighborhoods and circle around the blocks.
Yeah. Well,
I
that's
don't
the
know why
argument
the
to
city
open
did
up
it.
the parks so that people can spread out a little bit more. But slightly different topic from this topic. But I do
Sorry,
understand your point.
sorry.
I do understand your perspective. And and so for myself, I seen so I had to go to Safeway, so I biked over there and on Middlefield, and I did notice on Middlefield cars go pretty fast, right? So in fact, I think maybe faster than normal. So I do think there is speeding, at least from my own
There
casual
is.
observation. But
Yeah.
on my own street, there's like I'm usually on a cut through street. I'm in College Station, and I'm on one of those cut through streets, and typically there's like a lot, not a lot, but there's like a lot more traffic than there is now. And now it's like, I can walk in the middle of the street. In fact, I see my neighbors, they play ball in the middle of the street, right, with their kids, right, and because there's no cars. But so I do think they're speeding, but not. I think it's only on the thoroughfares. I think on like a lot of local streets, it's pretty quiet in general. Um, but I actually was it Sandra? You said you looked at the Oakland ordinance pretty quick.
Gail
Okay,
said.
okay, okay. Oh,
I did read the Oakland
Okay.
article, but they're doing more like boulevards,
Uh-huh. It's
like a
different-
bike boulevard, except for, like you could take Bryant Street and say, okay, no traffic on Bryant Street at all.
Well, it's
Yeah.
kind of like that
You
now,
know,
right?
Or,
I mean,
well, yeah, I know, or Ross Road or something like that. I mean, when we walk in the neighborhood, we walk in the middle of the street generally. I just don't even feel safe. People come around the corner who are running
mhm.
and they don't see, and they're not wearing masks and they're coming around the corner and we're older. And it's like, I'd just rather walk in the middle of the street. Frankly, I feel safer in the middle of the street than I do on the sidewalk.
I've seen people do that
I
actually.
agree.
Yeah.
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 I see. So idea is not to do what Oakland did, which is like Middlefield or Embarcadero or something like that, but to do it for maybe the smaller local streets.
I mean, that's one thing to do. I mean, or just let people close off the streets as they want to use it for themselves instead of for the cars. I mean,
Well, I know in my neighborhood, on the 4th of July, one of the streets here, Columbia, they put cones out and they kind of close it off, and then there's like a little block party.
yeah.
I think there's also some concern. I've seen some people who wrote in, they were concerned about, if this would promote people to get closer than 6 feet. But I don't know. I mean, I've seen so far people in Palo Alto be really, really good to the extreme about keeping their distance. I haven't seen. I mean, I think the kids are different. For the kids, I've seen them,
Get a little closer. Yeah.
yeah, get a lot closer. But I think for the adults, I've seen people being extremely good about that. What if we were to have more people wear face masks?
Yes. I mean, that's my beef is I'm walking and I'm, I'll be out over at Stanford.
Yeah.
And there's nobody around, so I take my face mask off and some runner comes by or a bike comes by and they're huffing and puffing and they're like, and it's like, where did I didn't even get a chance to put my mask on.
Yeah.
And I think honestly that we should just have everybody wearing masks. Honestly, I think that's.
I think some places do that where everyone wears a mask. Like in South Korea, they kind of done that and they do extensive tracing and they've been able to reopen a lot of things because of that.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's something we should consider.
Well, that's off the topic for this call, but I'm very upset when I'm trying to do so much to keep safe. And then I see runners and bikers who are breathing heavily. It's not even a walker, because a walker, you can walk 8 feet and you're fine. But somebody who's huffing and puffing.
Yeah, I agree.
And you come around the corner and there they are. And they're, I just picture this cloud of COVID around them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's, and it's really about keeping other people. It's about having the sensibility of trying to keep my community safe. And I don't think that ethos is in there for a lot of people who are out there running. And
some people are being very selfish.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So,
Sandra, I am a runner. I'm out there running. I run every day with my daughter.
Uh-huh.
We do to run, like we run down streets where there is a lot of space because we don't want to run into someone.
Right.
We're not running downtown we're not running at corners. Like, we really work to do that because there's no, I mean, number one, our sanity would be in like,
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
not,
think we could survive this with.
yeah, I'm not
And
suggesting you
run,
don't
I
run.
can't run with a mask, and running, I mean, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
I can barely wear the mask to the grocery store without panicking. So
Sure.
So
It-
Greg, do you
Yeah.
have any idea if other council members share your interest in this topic, really the street closure idea? Have any of them expressed support? I know Adrian has.
We didn't really, we haven't, this hasn't been an agendized topic. We haven't had any formal discussions about it. We do know that there's speeding, right? I think almost all
Yeah,
the members have
true.
acknowledged that issue. We're trying to figure out that issue. I know that a lot of people really don't like the loss of the parks. And so how do we handle that, right? So that's something that I've heard a lot about. It's a really interesting idea whether we should do these temporary street closures. Um, and this is why I'm having office hours, because I want to hear the community's feedback and thoughts, and like, could something like this work, right? Like, is it possible? And my only worry about all this, of course, is it takes a long time for cities to do things, right? So what I wonder is, by the time we finish this, will this all be over, right? That's the other thing
But we could try a demonstration project for a period of a month or so, then take advantage of the opportunity. Again, I agree with Sandra, keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Letting the police know, and police and fire, so they're aware, but not making it bureaucratic. I couldn't agree more.
I wonder if,
I honestly, I didn't even want to come on this call because I said, I just want to go do it. And,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Come and arrest me for doing it? I mean, for closing off my street for a couple hours to let the kids play outside and have us have a drink together? I mean, seriously.
Right,
So
no,
I even told Gail, I called her up. I said, well, I'm not even sure I want to be on a call.
yeah.
well,
Well,
okay,
here we are.
So Esther, given some of the ideas that have been kind of circulating here, right? So not to close down Millfield or Embarcadero, but just to be maybe on streets where, most people on the street are like okay with it for a couple hours a day or whatever. What's your thoughts about that approach?
I'm coming from Europe where you have streets with pedestrian areas where no cars are driving, and it's the best for people.
Yeah.
I always envision University Avenue as being one of these pedestrian areas, actually, because it's fun to walk there. It's a wide street. It's a really wide street. And you could do so much with that if you would put that into a pedestrian area.
Esther, I love it.
Yep, I agree.
I think most people, and I think even the transportation department would kind of wouldn't mind doing it either. I think there are a lot of people in transportation.
There's been a lot of over the past few decades. I used to be on the planning commission. This is like a topic that keeps coming up. It's like, should we make University Avenue a pedestrian mall? It comes up again and again. And actually, what happened recently is in San Francisco, Market Street. I don't know if you guys know this, but Market Street. It's closed. You can still ride buses and stuff on it, but it's closed to private cars. Although that was just a few weeks or so before the COVID-19 thing. So I don't know. But it was.
If they can do it on Broadway and Times Square, we can do it in Palo Alto.
Yeah, I agree.
Great.
And look, we already know how it works for the farmers market on California Avenue. I mean, there are a lot of examples where it can be very good and very functional. But anyhow,
how do you think we can make sure that there's buy-in from, let's say, Sandra, you do in front or near where your house is, right? How do we make sure that the people there? I mean, Sandra, I think you're on Bryant, right?
I'm on Addison, and between Ramona and Emerson, and I have like 6 or 7 houses on the block, and everybody's going like, let's do it.
How does if we do something like this, how do we make sure that the people there kind of buy into it, right? And it doesn't.
Well, I just wrote an email to everybody on the block, and I just said,
you have to do a quick survey. Email.
What do you think?
Next door, on next door, you have a lot of neighbors,
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of how do we practically do this without 6 months of study,
No, well, that's the point, is that that's why I said I don't even want to be in the call, because I just want to go out and do it.
Put some cones out.
You'll really go take the street closure procedures now that are used for block party, greatly simplify it so it's not a deterrent, make sure you have a sense of your neighbors so no one feels they're being forced. And it seems pretty straightforward. Just focus on the simplification. If
So-
we do a big study, forget it.
No, and I think, you know, if somebody on the block says, I don't want to do it, I have my groceries I'm bringing in on Sunday, it's fine. Bring in your groceries, just be aware that they're going to maybe kids playing, and, you know, just like, that's fine. We're not banning cars. We're just trying to get street closure for pastors.
William, on the
I mean,
emails, you have,
Rick, it feels like
sorry, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry, go
it
ahead.
feels like this is.
You're
Yeah.
being so
I mean, it
choppy.
feels like
hard to
it's
hear
so
anything.
simple just to put up cones. If you're not in. Yeah, never mind.
No, I think I get your point. I think that's your point. I was just going to ask William. We got, William, do you know how many people wrote in about this? And I'm just curious if you know how many people like wrote in like in favor and not in favor. And I'll let him research that as we talk. But um, yeah, I know this is a very popular topic. A lot of people were very interested on this topic, so that's why I wanted to have a discussion on it. Yeah, I guess I think you could probably get the feel of people that live there. But what about people that have to go through there for whatever reason, right?
I
What do
mean,
you?
so you go around. I mean, there's not that much traffic out there right now that this is going to cause any kind of hardship on anybody. I can't see any hardship on anybody.
Mm,
I mean, what happens on Bryant Street? If you live on Bryant, you know, you're going through Bryant, you can't, you go to other streets.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
look, you're never going to please everybody in this town, period.
Yeah.
I learned that you cannot make everyone happy. That's impossible to do.
Yeah,
Um,
so
Yeah. Okay, interesting. William, are you able to pull it up? I don't know if I think he's still on. Yeah, he's still on. I think he's still researching it. I'm just curious to know like what the we got a lot of email on this. So but okay, just out of curiosity. So I don't think this is necessarily going to solve the speeding problem. What do you guys think we should do with the speeding problem?
Enforcement.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
put a speed trap on Embarcadero and Middlefield. And when
Yeah.
you do that, people will get the message real fast.
And a restradero between Alma and 280.
Mm,
Yep.
Ah. I'm more worried about the right, how you call it, the right turners. You know how often I would be dead if I wouldn't have really stopped them in the last second. They look in one direction. They never look at that direction where you walk actually.
Yeah,
And
actually,
That's the gas, you know.
yeah, actually, that I don't know if you guys heard, but a middle school student near my neighborhood on California and El Camino
Yeah.
got killed. Right. This is just shortly before the COVID-19 thing. Just
Yeah.
incredibly.
Oh, yeah,
My
yeah.
father was a cool block. Well, we were there. You and I went to
Oh
the
yeah,
block.
yeah. So yeah, you know about that, and just my daughter goes to Green, right, and just 1 year younger than my daughter, and just incredibly tragic because of the very issue you talked about, which is that people aren't looking, to the right, and yeah, it just
That bothers me more than speeding, I'm honest with you. Because it's the kids, kids
Dangerous.
who cross
Yeah.
the streets, and I'm an adult. And
yeah,
it happened to me so often.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
The right turning stuff there.
yeah. No, I hear you. Okay. Let's see. Any other thoughts on this topic?
Keep it simple. Just what Elizabeth wrote. Keep it simple.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Do it fast.
This slogan.
I think she also said don't. I think she's trying to say don't use the cops to resources to do this, which it seems to make sense to me.
No, don't. I mean, that's
No,
a complete
that's-
waste of time. That's a
No,
complete
Yeah.
waste of time.
Yeah.
I think
They just need to know what's going on out there. They don't need to be circulating around.
This isn't a nanny state, let us
Yeah.
live in our homes and live our lives as best we can during this period. Period.
Period. Yeah,
really.
right.
Just
Right,
that's
right.
it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
open the parks again. Open up the parks.
Okay, I'm curious. So I know your opinion, Esther, but Gail or Sandra, what's your opinion about the parks? What should we? because right now they close the parking lots, but what's,
Well, I think the main issue here is, for example, in Foothill, because Jeff and I went up there, did some hiking at early March. The issue is when you are hiking higher up in Foothill, when the trails are very narrow
Mm.
and you can't easily pass, that's an issue. I think a couple people I know, and I also someone up in the peninsula, has suggested we suggest one way
oh,
head traffic, hiker traffic on the trails. That way you can manage a lot better. Now, it's an interim solution,
yeah.
but it might make it possible to utilize it and not be in an unsafe situation. Now, some of these other places, like the Baylands and all, there's more space. But again, not everyone is doing the distancing. Most people are. But I think the issue is with the trails higher up, if they're narrow and you're on a,
Yeah,
the edge-
but yeah.
yeah, you know,
We've been doing a lot at Stanford. We go, because we live so close to Stanford.
yeah,
so
you do, yeah,
We go over to Stanford a lot.
yeah,
And, you know, people are pretty good, you know,
pretty
again,
good.
occasionally there's the runner who comes who's huffing and puffing, or the biker who comes and huffing.
No, we've pretty good. I mean, I've seen a few jerks, but pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think you have to manage. I like that kind of idea of the one way.
yeah.
one-way
I mean,
trails.
Good
it's
idea.
it doesn't require a lot of infrastructure, and it's just common sense, you know, but.
Yeah. But
you
even
know,
there, you know, if you're coming up behind somebody and they're not wearing a mask, that's an issue.
Right, same problem.
Yeah.
So I asked William to go through the email, just tell me like how many pros and cons on this
Yeah.
street closure. He says that there's no cons so far, but I don't know. I don't know. He's doing this live, so I'm not sure how extensive he
Yeah, I mean,
has.
people are focusing on different issues. I think that's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but we had a lot of people who wrote in on this topic, which is
Oh, good.
why
Okay.
Oh, you did? Oh, good.
yeah, this is why we're talking about it, right?
Okay.
It's
Well,
because of
I was
that.
going to talk to Philip tomorrow. I don't know if, you know, I just,
Good idea.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I think it's probably worth it for us to kind of investigate this more. I mean, I do know that I think I did. I'm not sure. I think there's no cons, but I do think there was one or two emails where people were worried about if you do street closures, would this promote more people congregating closer together or not? And so,
you know, we're all grown-ups. That can happen in anywhere. I mean, they can go to anywhere
Yeah.
and congregate if
Yeah.
they want.
Yeah.
So it's not.
yeah.
Yeah.
For me, so far I've seen. I haven't seen any adults not respect the 6 feet distance. Kids.
Yeah, I've seen some of
I've heard about it, but I haven't seen the kids themselves.
I've seen like 20-year-olds, a lot of 20
Okay.
year, sort of that
Yeah.
age group where
Oh.
they just like, they seem oblivious. They're either on their phones or they're listening on
Oh.
their headphones and they're not paying attention.
In general, it seems like so far I've seen people have been pretty good. I haven't seen too much, just blowing it off type thing. I've seen.
I
Yeah.
see it in the supermarkets. You
Oh,
know, people
supermarket's unavoidable.
stand 6
Yeah.
feet outside, but once inside,
Yeah.
they're all over each other.
Well, one thing that they could do
Yeah.
is do one-way aisles.
Oh,
That would be good. Yeah,
No,
I
I'm
Right,
serious. I'm
right,
serious. Do
right.
one-way aisles and you just go
Yeah.
up and down the aisle until you're done, you know?
yeah, make it in a circle, right? Like a lane, like
Yeah,
an
kind of like
IKEA
a-
with
yeah, kind of-
arrows. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
same
I'm not allowed in
principle.
the supermarket because I'm over
Yeah.
65, so I'm not allowed. Haven't been in one in.
but I think it's so little ridiculous. You know, you stand outside, really nice, and as
Yeah.
soon as you're inside,
Yeah.
everybody goes by you. You know, nobody takes 6 feet anymore.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
done. Poof, out the window.
Okay, I have to go,
Okay,
everybody.
yeah, no, we're over time here, but thank you so much for everyone's
Okay,
feedback.
thank you.
All right,
I have to
Been very
go
helpful.
too.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.